has more prone to there are several, what we call high cholesterol levels. So we found out that those factors are more prominent in people who have not been able to control their stress levels. Unfortunately, there was a lady who attended this program last year. She had a problem with her relationships. She was thrown out of her marital home. She had so many issues, and by the time we're encountering her, she had now developed breast cancer. And we're wondering, why would one person, have so many issues? So there is that link. Once there is a lot of stress in your life, then you are more likely to be ill. And so that's why we need to take note of some of these things. Poor health outcomes are what we see when people are stressed. 70%, approximately 70% of visits to a primary care provider are related to stress. So most of us are stressed. But there's something that causes stress that we need to avoid. So I'm going to start with that. We call it unnecessary suffering. So there are some sufferings that are necessary. We can't help it. When we go through old age, separation, death or loss of a loved one, illness, those are some things that we cannot say they will totally disappear from around us. But there are some that are unnecessary. And we ladies, we need to take note of those things. They happen because of our cravings, our likes, our wants, our attachments, aversions, things that we just want. Oh, this person is wearing this particular cloth. I have to get something like this. And so you give yourself the extra burden of trying to get that thing, which you don't have the capacity to get at that time. Those are things that we need to take note of. The way in which you judge yourself is important. There is a quote that says that the truth is that stress doesn't come from your boss, your kids, your spouse, traffic jams, health challenges, or other circumstances. It comes from your thoughts about your circumstances. So that's why you can see two people experiencing the exact same thing, and someone has a positive outlook on that situation, the other person has a negative outlook. Now, let's talk about the emotions. So I've already highlighted before that we have positive and negative emotions. Now, negative emotions and positive emotions, they are both part of life. They are things that we should expect. But, negative emotions, we don't find them pleasant. Typically, you don't want to experience sadness, you don't want to experience pain, you don't want to experience anger, but it comes. And so, when you find out that an emotion is discouraging you or dragging you down, that is a negative emotion. However, we have positive ones. So the positive emotions are love, joy, satisfaction, contentment, interest in something, amusement, happiness, serenity, awe. Those are some positive emotions. But we need to point out here that negative emotions, they give us a counterpoint to positive emotions. If you don't know how feeling unhappy is, you won't really be able to distinguish, the feeling of joy or excitement. So the reason why negative emotions are important at some stage of our lives is because they help to boost our chance of reaction to a thing and survival. So if you don't feel angry about a situation, you won't be able to correct it. You find yourself just being a mediocre. You're just letting it go. Okay, that's what happened. Okay. So you need that emotion to be able to say, why would such a thing happen? How do we address this situation? How do we get people to help me address this situation? But unfortunately, we find out that some people don't do anything about important things in their lives, in their family. I encountered a lady who was in the hospital, almost weeping throughout because they had a challenge with childbearing, and everyone in the family was saying that it was as a result of the woman, whereas it was actually the man. And they would call her to a meeting, everybody would rain insults on her, and the husband would not say anything. And of course, that put her in a very, very stressful or frustrated state. So it is important to be able to address these things. Another example is fear. Sometimes fear is good to protect us from danger, and that's why we have what we call adrenaline. Adrenaline is the fight or flight hormone. So you want to address a situation, fight that lion, or you want to escape from it. So it's an important emotion, but we should not let some of those emotions linger. So it is how long you stay on those emotions that matter. Okay, all right. So how then do I juggle my emotions? How do I switch through unpleasant situations and pleasant situations? So there are three major things. One is building up on positive emotions. The second thing is contentment. The third thing is working on your strength and your virtue. So when we're talking about positive emotions, I've already mentioned them. What they do for you is that even in the midst of an unhappy situation, because you are focusing on the joy of something important to you, things that matter, your relationships, your family, what is working, what is going well, let your attention be more on those things. Don't form the habit of thinking about all the bad things that have happened, all the things in the social media that we hear, going through every video that you hear, all the bad news. You'll find out that once your mind is stayed on bad news, you will feel like weeping all the time. So you need to focus on the things that are going well around you. And then contentment. So contentment or satisfaction doesn't mean that you are mediocre. It just means that you are satisfied with what you have and you are not going through a particular route to get what you don't have the ability to get at that time. Even if you do have to go through a process of trusting God, but you are doing it the right way. So it's very important that we work on our thoughts. So once you can have good thoughts about yourself, about your family, about your relationships, you find out that your feelings will be better enhanced as well. Another thing that we noticed from that world poll that I talked about earlier, talking about the difference between the happiest countries in the world and the worst countries, there are three major things that I want us to take note of. They notice that helping strangers, volunteering, donations, those were the things that contributed to people's happiness, especially during the COVID period, during that pandemic period. Kind words to people. And you would think that, so what's the big deal? But those were the things making people happy. Acts of kindness, even to people that you don't know. You are not expecting anything in return. Volunteering. A program such as this, you have decided to volunteer for the medical outreach or for something that you are not necessarily expecting something back. Those are the things that enhance our happy feelings. Donations. And I'll just quickly share with us some of the things we can do to manage our emotions positively. Connect with people. Don't be a loner. Don't be isolated. When you have issues, talk about it. Connect with other people. It can be in an association. It can be in your church workers group. It could be in a fellowship like this. Connect with other people. Get involved. Don't wait to be called. Volunteer. Do your hobbies. So there are some things you love doing. Try and identify your hobbies and carry them out regularly. Find healthy ways to relax. You can listen to music, of course, good music, because studies have shown that if you listen to a certain kind of music, it actually affects your emotions and your behavior. Then dancing. We danced this morning. I'm sure many of us, when we worshiped and danced this morning, you felt relieved, even if you came in stressed. Meditation, taking a walk, exercise, all these are very important. Walking in your garden, reading a good book, watching a comedy, having time to worship, taking a long bath, writing in your journal, calling a friend, spending time in nature. All these things have been shown to build positive emotions, and we can just put them in what we call a stress relief toolbox. And you can pick out that box at any time and pick pick out anything there. Even in the midst of that unpleasant situation, someone shouted at you, someone annoyed you, you are feeling pressured, just go for a walk. Listen to music, worship, meditate, pray. So those are the ways in which you can build up your healthy emotions. And of course, I've talked about contentment. I've talked about strengths and virtues. Strength and virtues, they have been shown to enable individuals to thrive wherever you find yourself. And what are the examples of virtues? Wisdom, knowledge, courage, justice. And is it not interesting to know that all these things actually come from God? God is the source of all of this. So you just trust God. Lord, I need your wisdom here. I need knowledge. I need courage. I need justice in this situation. And these are the things that can help you. So summing it up in conclusion, we have stressful situations around us. We have circumstances that make us feel afraid, that make us feel unhappy, but you can build up a happy emotion even in the midst of that, because God has given us everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of him. And it's amazing that Paul the Apostle, he talked about what he went through, the shipwrecks, he went through the floods, how he was in a poor position, you couldn't eat, so many things, but yet he was able to carry God's mandate. So as women, God's battle axe, we don't have any excuse for carrying God's mandate. He has given you all the resources you need. And I believe that the Lord will help us to apply this in the way that he wants us to. In Jesus' name.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ori. Please make that clap louder. If you were truly blessed, make it louder. You know, Dr. Ori is so loaded that if we allow her, that will be the only thing we'll be taking for today. God bless you, my sister.
One who is in this gathering this morning. So we want to quickly look at how to do breast self-examination on our own. And that's what I'm going to be teaching in the next few minutes. Breast cancer is the world's most prevalent cancer. In the year 2020, about 2.3 million women were diagnosed with breast cancer globally. And I'm sure you know that this figure might not be really exact because, like in Nigeria, we don't capture all our data. So, but for those who capture data, about 685,000 deaths were recorded in the year 2020 alone. So it's important that we check ourselves from time to time. And there are three major ways by which breast cancer can be, well, I don't want to say diagnosed, maybe I should say can be picked up. The first one is the breast self-examination. And the good news is that we can do that by ourselves. The second one is the cytological analysis, and the last one is the mammography. So I'll quickly explain what each of this is. What we're talking about this morning is the breast self-examination. I'll go to it later. But when a woman checks herself regularly and then you suspect that there is a lump or an unusual thing or a change in the breast, it will now be time to go see the doctor. And at that time, if necessary, a cytological analysis can be done. That's when they will do what we call fine needle aspiration. They will take a sample from the breast. Okay. Excuse me. They take a sample from the breast using a fine needle, and that is taken to the lab for analysis. So that you can't do by yourself. That has to be done in the hospital. And the last one is the mammography. That we are even encouraged to do from time to time. It's a regular, test that we should do. We'll also get to it in the course of this training. So when you're checking your breast, there are things to watch out for so that if there's any issue, you can pick it up as fast as possible. The first one is texture change. If there's any change in the texture, if the breast is looking different than it was looking before, or if there is dimpling, we all know what dimples are. You know, some people when they smile, their cheek goes in. That's a dimple. If you suddenly notice a dimple in the breast or in the armpit, that could be a danger sign. If there is a discharge of any sort from the nipple and you are not breastfeeding, it could be a colorless liquid, it could be a milky substance, It could be even blood. Any discharge at all calls for further investigation. Then if you notice a redness or any form of rash on the breast or lumps in the armpit, so sometimes it may not show up on the breast, it may show up in the armpit, that also needs to be investigated. Or if the nipple is inverted, there are people who have inverted nipples normally, but you never had an inverted nipple. All of a sudden, the nipple went in, became inverted. That calls for further investigation. And finally, if there is a lump in the breast, it's better if you even detect it and then you go to the hospital, you are checked, you do all the tests, and they say, oh, don't worry about it, it's the breast tissue itself, than for you to notice something and you just keep it to yourself. That could be very dangerous. So let's quickly look at how to do a breast self-examination, which is really her concern for this morning. It's important to do a BSE once in a month. And it's better, around the time when you have your monthly period. That's after the menstruation. 2-3 days after menstruation, a woman should check her breast. And then for those who have reached menopause, I know we have a lot of grandmas in our midst, you can choose a particular day of the month. So you do it, about the same time every month. If you choose 15th, for instance, so every 15th you ensure that you check your breast. So the first thing to do is to examine the breast and armpit with raised arm. You can stand in front of a mirror, maybe in your bathroom, and then you raise your arm up. I hope the slides are a bit clear. You raise your hand up and then you examine the breast. Just take a look. For some of those things I mentioned earlier, is there a change? Is there any coloration, any discoloration? Are the breasts symmetrical? The two of them stand about the same height. If one seems to be dropping, it's no longer, forming symmetry with the other. Those are the kind of things to check for with hands raised. And then the next thing, you use your finger pads and you can, put some oil or shower gel on it to do the palpation. It's actually nice to do it under the shower when you're taking a shower. And so you use the right hand to do the left breast and then the left hand to check the right. You can decide to take it up, down. You come from up, you press and check every part of the breast. You go from up, down. Or you could decide to do it in a circular motion. That means you come from the center and you go round and round until you're sure you have felt every part of the breast. Another thing you could do is to use your, just in your mind, divide the breast into four, about 4 quadrants, and then you go from quadrant to quadrant, and then you palpate and check very well. If the breast is relatively large, you can use the other hand to support the breast so that you lift it up while you use this hand to palpate and check the breast for those things we have talked about. You also check, as you're palpating, you're checking, you have already inspected to be sure that there is no discoloration, there is no change in texture and all that. So, but this time when you are palpating the breast, you are actually feeling for any form of lumps, anything that is lumpy, that is not just part of the normal breast tissue. You want to check and pick it out. And then when you are done, squeeze the nipple gently to see whether there will be any form of discharge at all. It could be colorless, it could be milky, it could be even bloody. So if there's any discharge or there's a discoloration of the nipple, then you need to go for further check. Next slide, please. It's just showing the different positions that we can take when doing a breast self-examination. You put your hand behind your head while you're looking in the mirror to check, or you can stand like this. All those postures are there. And like I said earlier, it's easier to do when you are under the shower. The others are just pictures describing the things I have already talked about. You can move on to the next slide. So that's describing what I said earlier on. You can see that that lady is supporting the breast with the other hand so that she can actually feel the different parts of the breast very well. And then the things to watch out for are in the next slide. If the breast is itchy, it is red, or it is painful, or there's a discharge in the nipple, or you have pain and tenderness in the armpit, or there is a skin change, or the breast seems to be changing shape. I talked about dimpling before, or it's standing differently from the other one. All of these are signs that tell you that you need to go to the hospital. I'd like to share a very painful experience, at this juncture. We had a lady who was a friend in our neighborhood, and because she really loved our children, she was always around us and all. And at a time, she got ill, and she went to a hospital, she was treated, and on and on. But for a couple of months, we weren't seeing her, and I kept calling and asking, how are you? What's going on? And she just said, no, she was a bit down. I am a pharmacist, like I've been introduced. My sister is a doctor, and she's close to the two of us. She didn't say anything. Until one day I drove to her house, and I said, you know what? Get in the car. I'm taking you home. And then when she got to her house, I said, what exactly is the problem? And then she said, let's go to the children's room. By the time she took off her clothes, she was already in stage, was it 3 or 4, of breast cancer. There was nothing we could do. As we speak, she has gone to be with the Lord. And if only she had spoken up, if only she had, shared what she was passing through, I believe that today she will still be alive. She noticed the lump, and then she went to some hospital to have it removed. And where it was done, I don't believe that she got quality care, And then when the lump was removed, it was not sent for histology. So nobody picked it up that it was anything cancerous. And before you know it, in fact, by the time she came to us, you could see the dimpling, all these signs I mentioned were present in this lady. So we need to speak out. We need to talk to people who can help us. So the take-home messages: examine your breast monthly, especially after your period. If you're already a postmenopausal woman, please do it once every month at a regular interval. Report any unusual lumps, skin changes, or nipple discharge to your doctor. And please ensure that you go to a hospital where you are sure that there are qualified medical personnel to attend to you. Women aged 45 to 54 should have annual mammograms. Usually around February, we usually have the, World Breast Cancer Day. And at that time, there will be a lot of promotions. People will do this test at discounted rates. So you can watch out for that and go do a mammogram. You should do it at least once a year if you are between the age 45 and 54. And then women 55 to 74 can do theirs once in 2 years. Women below 40 may not benefit from mammograms. Instead, they should do breast scan. You just do an ultrasound scan. And this will be important, especially if you have noticed, a lump in your breast. And then it's recommended that you do an annual physician breast examination. But I know that in our part of the world, if you go to the hospital and say you want to have your breast checked, the doctors may even laugh. But in any case, do the BSE yourself. And if there's the need to go further, you do that. Every lump is best removed. And I'm going to stress that if you have a lump removed, please ensure follow-up. That is histology and relevant treatment. That means when they remove a lump from the breast, that lump that is removed must be taken to the lab for further tests. That's what we call histology. It is that test that will tell whether the lump that was removed is cancerous or not. So if it is, then whatever further treatment needs to be done you will be advised, and that will be done. And then if it is not, you have your mind at rest. In that lady's case, when the lump was removed, it wasn't sent for any histology. Nobody followed up, so we need to be extremely careful. And then we should try not to spread false messages. People say all sorts of things, if you have this, drink that, take this. No. All you need to do is just do this check, make sure that you know yourself, you know your breast, and if anything is changing, you can tell. And then if there is need for, further help, you can go to the doctor. So I have a 3-minute video which I would like us to play, if it will be clear. It will just share with us in simpler terms all what I have been talking about. Thank you.
Let's get started. Step 1. Stand in front of the mirror
So
and
step
check
one,
your
stand in
breasts
front of
for
the
the
mirror
changes
and check your
including
breasts.
change in your breast
So
size
check for
or
any
shape,
change in breast size or shape.
thickening of the skin
If there's
in the
thickening of
breast
the skin in the
or
breast or the
underarm area,
those are things to
swelling,
pick up.
warmth,
Swelling,
redness, or darkening of the breasts, dimpling or
If there's
puckering
dimpling
of the breast
or
skin,
puckering of the breast skin,
an itchy, scaly
an
sore
itchy, scaly
or
sore
rash on the
or
nipple,
rash. If there is a rash
pulling
around
in
the nipple,
of your nipple or another part of
or
your
any part
breast,
of the breast at
or
all.
pain in one part of the breast. Step 2.
So the
Now
second
raise
step,
your hands
raise your
and look
hands and
under
look
your
under
breasts for the same changes.
So you check
Also
the breast,
feel
you check
for
under the
lumps
breast.
or hardness
You can
in
see
this
that lady,
area.
she's raising one hand up and using the other hand to check
Step
under
3.
under
Next,
the breast.
check your
Step
nipples for
check
any
your
discharge
nipples for
or
any
fluid
discharge or
secretion.
fluid secretion.
Nipple discharge may be watery, milky, yellowish,
Could be
or even
colourless,
tinged
milky,
with blood
it could
and
be
should be
milky, it could
checked
bloody.
immediately. Step 4.
Step 4.
Lie down on a
Lie
firm
down
surface on your back and
using
using slow circular motions, feel your breasts for any kind of lump. Follow a pattern to be sure that you cover the whole breast. You can begin at the nipple, moving in larger and larger circles until you reach the outer edge of the breast. Check the inner part of your armpit as well. Always use opposite hands to check the breast. Step 5. Stand up and repeat the same circular motions from step 4 across each breast. Step 6. If you detect anything suspicious in either of these steps, don't panic. Make a note of your findings and schedule an appointment with your doctor immediately. If everything seems okay, you can be at ease. But remember to conduct this examination every month. But do keep in mind that you do it after your period.
Thank you so much. That was healthy. That was